My brother erased my name from our company and took all the credit. He called me emotional, unstable, said I couldn't lead. I didn't shout. I showed this to the investors. When my brother found it, his face lost all color. My name's Ryan, and I'm the youngest of 3 brothers. Growing up, that meant I was the quiet one, the one who didn't cause trouble, the helper, the guy who picked up the slack when things got messy. My older brothers, Nate and Luke, were always louder, faster, more confident. Nate especially. Everything he touched turned into a show. So when Nate called me up 3 years ago with a business idea, a sustainable tech startup, I said yes without hesitation. He had the contacts. I had the skills. He talked big, I built things. It worked, or at least I thought it did. Until the day I found out he launched it without me. I was making breakfast when I saw the message. A congratulatory text from Chris, one of the investors we'd been working with for months. Excited for the launch today. Nate said you decided to step back, but I still wanted to wish you well. This is huge. My stomach dropped. Step back. I hadn't stepped back. I was supposed to be at that meeting. I was supposed to be on that launch call. I opened my laptop with shaking hands and pulled up the company's site. There it was. The brand I helped create. The copy I had written. The product specs I had fine-tuned. And not a single mention of me. My name wasn't anywhere. It was like I never existed. I didn't think. I just grabbed my keys and drove straight to the office. Not his office. Our office. Or so I'd thought. The receptionist looked surprised when I blew past her desk. I knew exactly where I was going. The conference room. The glass walls gave it all away. There he was. Nate, in his tailored blazer, laughing and shaking hands with investors like he'd built this from scratch. Like I hadn't been there every late night, every pivot, every hard decision. When he saw me, he paused for a split second, then smiled like nothing was wrong. Hey, look who's here. Everyone, this is my brother Ryan. The room quieted. A few nods. Some polite smiles. I didn't return them. I looked straight at Nate. My voice was low but steady. What the hell is this? He chuckled too loud. Let's talk outside. No, we're talking now. Chris, the investor who texted me, shifted in his chair. Wait, is there a problem? I turned to him. Yeah, Chris, there's a problem. I didn't step back from this company. That was a lie. Murmurs spread. Nate's smile faltered. I spent 3 years building this, I said, my voice rising. I was the one who handled the product. I pitched half of you in this room, and now he launches it without me? Like I never existed. Nate's face hardened. Ryan, don't do this. Not here. I laughed bitterly. You stole this company, and now you're worried about being embarrassed? Chris raised a hand. Nate, is that true? You said he left. Nate gave one of his trademark sighs, the kind he uses when he wants to look like the adult in the room. We had creative differences. Ryan wasn't ready to scale. I had to make a call. I could feel the anger rising in my chest. Don't spin this. You locked me out of meetings. You changed passwords. You waited until I was visiting Mom to roll this out. Chris looked back and forth between us. Ryan, you were still part of this last month. You pitched that prototype. Exactly. I was in. Until I wasn't. I turned to the other investors. You all saw my name on the early proposals. You know I co-founded this. This isn't a creative difference. This is theft. The room was dead silent. I stared Nate down. You always do this. You think if you smile big enough, talk fast enough, you can get away with anything. But not this time. His voice was sharp now. I did what I had to do. You were holding us back. No, I said. You just couldn't stand sharing the spotlight. And for the first time, he didn't have anything to say. The investors didn't jump up. No one yelled. But something shifted in that room. Doubt. Suspicion. The kind that lingers. I walked out without another word. I didn't slam the door. I didn't make a scene. But I knew I had just lit a fuse. Looking back, I should have seen it coming. The way Nate forgot to loop me in. The way he brushed off my input the closer we got to launch. I thought we were building something together. But Nate was just waiting for the right moment to cut me loose. He thought I'd walk away quietly. He was wrong. I didn't sleep that night. I kept running through every meeting, every conversation we'd had, trying to figure out where it turned. When he started planning this, there must have been signs, texts he didn't reply to, slides he didn't share. Even that time he insisted I skip the trip to the West Coast Investor Summit because someone needed to stay local. I believed him, like an idiot. Around 3 a.m., I was still sitting in front of my laptop, reading emails from months ago. And one thing became clear. He'd been rewriting the narrative for a long time, softening my role, framing things so that, when the time came, no one would be surprised. I wasn't angry anymore. I was focused. The next morning, I called my attorney. I kept everything, drafts, emails, call logs, even voice memos. I didn't know if I could stop the launch, but I'd make damn sure Nate wouldn't get away clean. I wasn't going to fight dirty. I wasn't going to turn into him, but I wasn't disappearing either. And deep down, I hoped Nate was sweating. Just a little. Because he should be. I could still hear Nate's voice in my head, months before everything fell apart, when I first pitched him the idea over beers in my apartment. "Are you sure about this?" he said, half laughing, half challenging, leaning back with that lazy confidence he wore like a second skin. Running a company's a hell of a lot of pressure, little bro. I remember nodding, trying to match his calm. "Yeah, I'm sure." But even then, there was something in his tone. Not doubt. Dismissal. Like he'd already made up his mind about how this would go. Looking back now, I know he never saw me as a co-founder. Not really. I was a placeholder. The guy who'd do the boring stuff until it was time for the real show. His show. And I gave him that space. I let him run the calls, handle the pitches, take the lead in meetings because I genuinely thought we were a team. I did the foundation work, the licensing, the branding, the budgeting. Nate was the front man. That was the plan. But the plan only works when both sides play fair. It didn't start with a betrayal. It started with a suggestion. "You should let me take point on the investor call," he said one evening, scanning my PowerPoint deck while sipping whiskey. "You're great with numbers, but I've got the charm. That's what they buy." I shrugged. "Fine. You do the talking. I'll handle the logistics." He clinked his glass against mine. Dream team. For a while, it did feel that way. We were getting traction. We were building something. I remember staying up until 2 a.m. tweaking the software model while he texted with a VC in New York. We were a good match. But over time, I noticed things. Tiny things. In the early investor meetings, he introduced me as the brains. Eventually, I became operations. Then just my brother Ryan. After a while, the intros stopped altogether. I started getting left off calendar invites. He stopped copying me on investor updates. When I brought it up, he brushed it off. "It's just easier to keep it streamlined," he said. "Investors like a clear point of contact." I wanted to believe that. God, I really did. I wanted to believe this was just how scaling a company worked. That roles had to shift. But something in my gut said otherwise. 2 weeks before launch, I found out about a dinner he had with two of our biggest potential backers. I wasn't invited. Worse, he told them I was transitioning out. I confronted him in the office the next day. "You told them I'm stepping down?" He barely blinked. "It's just language, Ryan. Don't get caught up in wording. You've been quieter lately. I figured you were pulling back." "Pulling back? Are you serious?" I was at my cousin's funeral. He had the gall to look annoyed. "Look, man, timing sucks, okay? But this isn't personal. It's business. Right? Business. The thing about betrayal is that it never feels like one big knife. It's paper cuts. 1,000 tiny slashes until you realize you're bleeding out. The final cut came on launch day. I already knew by then what he'd done. The missing invites. The erased contributions. The silent rollout. Still, I hoped, stupidly, that he'd acknowledge me in the announcement. That maybe there'd be a credit line, a sentence, even a bullet point. There wasn't. Just his name. His smile. His win. I stood outside that glass conference room and watched it all like a ghost. My work. My product. My brother. When I finally pushed through the doors and called him out in front of everyone, I watched his face crack for the briefest moment. Not because he was ashamed, because I'd ruined the script. But that was just the beginning. That night, I didn't sleep. I opened every file I had. Every backup, draft, timestamp, email. I built a folder so detailed it looked like an FBI case. Because that's what this was. A theft. A hijacking. And I wasn't going to let it slide. The next morning, I called our old mentor, Miles, who had helped us brainstorm the company years ago. He picked up on the first ring. "You doing okay?" he asked. "Not really," I admitted. "Can we meet?" We sat down over lunch that afternoon. I told him everything, start to finish. He listened, asked questions, nodded in all the right places. Then he said, I always wondered why you weren't at the investor dinners. Now I know. He agreed to make some calls. Quietly. Then I called a lawyer. It was time to get serious. By the end of the week, a formal notice had been sent. Intellectual property claims. Partnership disputes. I wasn't bluffing. Nate, of course, sent a text. Wow, lawyering up? I thought we were family. I didn't answer. He called that night. Left a voicemail. This is ridiculous. You know how this works. We have to look unified. You making noise. It's not helping either of us. No apology. No accountability. Just Nate protecting Nate. The sad part? Part of me still wanted him to say sorry. To admit he got greedy. That maybe, deep down, he missed having me in the room. But that was never going to happen. I wasn't his partner. I was his placeholder. And now, I was his problem. I drove past the office the next morning just to see if he was there. He was. Through the window, I could see him laughing with someone, probably another investor. But his laugh didn't reach his eyes. Good. Let him worry. Because I wasn't done. And I wasn't going away quietly. I didn't expect him to respond right away. Nate never liked being challenged, especially not publicly. But even I was surprised at how fast the narrative shifted. By Monday, I started getting emails from people I hadn't heard from in months. Some vague, some not. Hey man, just heard what's going on. Hope you're okay. Crazy stuff. Was this always the plan? You and Nate splitting up, and then one from an early investor. He told us you'd had some mental health stuff and needed a break. Was that true? If not, you should clear that up. This could hurt your credibility. I stared at that one for a long time. Mental health. He went there. I closed my laptop and sat still for a minute, trying to slow the fire spreading through my chest. This wasn't just miscommunication anymore. It was a full-scale erasure. I should have known. Nate didn't just want me out of the company. He wanted to make sure if I ever spoke up, no one would listen. I opened the folder I'd made again. Everything was still there, screenshots, timestamp prototypes, old texts about business decisions, even videos of early whiteboard sessions where we sketched the product together. But that's not what this fight was about anymore. This wasn't about who built what. This was about credibility. So I got strategic. I reached out to Rachel first. She was an angel investor, small stake, but she'd always liked me. She answered on the first ring. Hey Ryan, did he tell you I had a breakdown? A pause. Implied you needed space. That you've been overwhelmed. Rachel, you saw my calendar. You know who booked those meetings. You were in the room when I led the pitch for Ecotech. I remember. I need your help. Not money. Just truth. She didn't hesitate. What do you need me to do? I spent the next week building a quiet case. Not legal, that was already in progress, but reputational. I had conversations, one by one, with people who mattered. Not to tear Nate down, but to lift the truth up. It worked slowly. At first, just awkward silences and email chains he was on. Then, a pulled invitation from a keynote event he'd been boasting about. Miles called me again to say 2 investors had asked questions. Then came the article. A mid-tier business blog posted a short piece titled, When Founders Disappear, the Quiet Battle Behind Green Nova's Launch. No names, but anyone who knew us knew who it was about. It outlined patterns of erasure, lack of credit, shifting narratives. I hadn't planted it, but I wasn't sorry it existed. 2 days later, Nate called. I didn't answer. He called again, left a voicemail. Hey, I don't know what's going on with all this media stuff, but we should talk. Get ahead of it. Maybe do a joint statement. A joint statement. After calling me unstable behind my back, I forwarded the voicemail to my attorney. Then I went back to work. Because somewhere in all this, I'd remembered what I was actually trying to build. I dusted off an old folder, one I hadn't opened since before Nate got involved. It was the earliest version of the product, simpler, more focused, built for real users, not investors. I started rewriting, stripped down the bloated vision Nate had insisted on, focused on the core tech, on the people we said we wanted to help in the first place. And then I started making calls. Not big money calls. Not VCs. I called people I trusted. A developer I'd worked with 5 years ago who'd moved to Colorado. A designer I met at a boot camp who now freelanced from Oregon. A college friend who ran a tiny nonprofit and knew the space inside and out. Within 2 weeks, I had a team. Within 3, we had code. By week 4, we had something better than what Nate had launched. Smaller, sure, but cleaner. Real. It was strange, watching everything I'd lost fall away while something new took shape under my hands. I still got updates from time to time. Nate was struggling. Rumors of internal issues. Someone leaked that one of the investors had pulled out. I didn't gloat. Not out loud. But I also didn't forget. Because here's the thing. I wasn't rebuilding out of revenge. I was rebuilding because the original vision still mattered to me. Even if he'd tried to poison it. I started documenting the new journey. Quietly. Thoughtfully. Not for investors. For myself. Then, about a month in, I got a letter. Official. Legal. From Nate's team. It was a cease and desist. He was claiming I'd stolen his intellectual property. That my new project infringed on Green Nova's code and branding. I laughed out loud. Because I had dated files. Recorded meetings. Video proof. And more importantly, a version that predated everything we'd built together. One he'd never even touched. I sent it all to my lawyer. And I wrote him back myself, too. Just one line. You can't steal something you never owned. I never heard back from him directly. But my attorney did. Their tone changed after the evidence. The threat faded. The posturing, too. And I kept going. Because now it wasn't just about proving him wrong. It was about proving myself right. And that was finally enough. It started with an email. Subject line, let's talk. It was from William. He was one of the earliest investors. Sharp, connected, old school. The kind of guy who doesn't flinch easily. And if he was reaching out, it meant something had shifted behind the curtain. I clicked it open. Ryan, would you be open to a meeting? A few things have come to light, and I believe it's worth discussing. I could set something up for this afternoon. Best, William. I didn't hesitate. I replied yes, dropped everything, and drove straight to the downtown office tower where most of our early investor meetings had happened. My palms were sweaty on the steering wheel the whole ride over. Part of me expected it to be a trap. Another part of me was too tired to care. When I arrived, the receptionist gave me a polite nod and waved me toward the boardroom without a word. That's when I saw Nate, already seated, arms folded, jaw clenched, looking like he just walked out of a grilling. Good. William greeted me with a handshake. His expression was neutral, professional, unreadable. Ryan, he said, gesturing to the chair opposite Nate. Thanks for coming. Let's get right to it. I sat. There were 3 other investors in the room. Familiar faces, all looking at me like they weren't sure whether to be impressed or pissed off. William cleared his throat and spoke. We've reviewed your documentation. Your name is on the original code base, early pitch materials, branding drafts, hell, even incorporation concepts. We also spoke to a few people who corroborated your role. I didn't say anything yet. I wanted to see where it was going. We've also spoken to Nate, he continued, shooting my brother a glance. He says this was a misunderstanding, that there was a disagreement over direction and you chose to walk away. That's not what happened, I said. Nate cut in before I could say more. Look, I'll admit communication wasn't great. I should have handled things differently. But I wasn't trying to screw Ryan over. I genuinely thought he was backing out. He'd gone quiet, and we were weeks from launch. I turned to him. You locked me out of accounts. You removed my access to our shared documents. You took meetings without me and told investors I was unstable. His mouth twitched, trying to form some kind of defense, but the room was watching now. And for the first time, he couldn't spin his way out. I didn't walk away, I said calmly, facing the investors. I was pushed, silently, strategically, and now he wants to act like it was some mutual decision. It wasn't. Silence. Then William exhaled slowly. Here's the problem, Nate, he said, turning to my brother. We don't invest in people who lie to us. We trusted you to tell us the truth about your team, your process, your leadership, and you deliberately misled us. One of the other investors added, if you're willing to do this to your own brother, what does that say about how you treat partners or clients down the line? Nate shifted in his seat, his face pale now. We've decided to pull our funding, William said. Effective immediately. We're withdrawing from Green Nova, and we'll be reallocating our support to Ryan's new venture. Nate's jaw dropped. You can't be serious, he said. You're going to tank the company over. You tanked it yourself, William cut in. You just didn't see it happening. There was nothing left to say. The meeting was over. I walked out without looking back. That afternoon, word spread. Quietly but quickly, Nate had lost his backing. Green Nova started crumbling from the inside. Employees jumped ship. Vendors canceled contracts, and the press caught wind. Meanwhile, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Former colleagues, friends, developers, even journalists, people reaching out to say they believe me now, that they were interested in what I was building, that they wanted in. In 2 weeks, we doubled our team. In 3, we had a prototype more stable than anything Nate had launched. And in a month, we had new investors, better ones who saw through smoke and spin. I never went after Nate legally. I didn't need to, because in the end, his reputation did all the work for me. Green Nova collapsed, quietly, without ceremony. By the end of the quarter, it was dissolved. Nate disappeared from the industry. No big statements, no apologies. And I built something real, with people I trusted. And this time, I didn't share credit with anyone who didn't earn it. In the end, the truth didn't just come out, it reshaped everything. Nate lost the company he took, and I built the one I believed in from the start. Not with revenge in mind, but with clarity, with purpose. Because sometimes the best way to win is simply to let the truth do its job. Thanks for watching. If you've ever had to start over, share your story in the comments. Let's talk. Like, share, and subscribe for more real stories that leave a mark.